everyone, welcome to a new edition of Award Circuit, where we spotlight some of the biggest contenders of the year during awards season. I'm Variety Senior Editor Michael Schneider.
And I'm Variety Senior Editor Danielle Terciano. And today we're looking ahead to the 78th Annual Golden Globes to talk about some comedy series. So I think in the crazy year that was 2020, every month kind of felt like a year long. The Emmys might seem like a decade ago to some people. But one of the contenders who I think has a lot of momentum since September is Schitt's Creek.
My family and I have been staying in a motel for the past 3 years. And I wouldn't trade our stay there for anything.
The show obviously swept the comedy categories at the Emmys in September, and it's since dropped its final season on streaming services like Netflix and CW Seed. And so a lot of audience members are just now getting into that final season that has been so beloved all year long. The Golden Globes, interestingly, never really celebrated it before, and oddly never even celebrated comedy legends Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara in their illustrious careers, which I just think is a travesty in and of itself. So it feels like that was a huge missed opportunity that now, hopefully can be rectified.
In a year that felt like we were up Schitt's Creek, this was the perfect year to get into Schitt's Creek if you haven't watched it yet. So I definitely think they're up there. As one of TV's salves, I think I'm going to coin that right now. It's a TV salve. It just made us feel better throughout the year. And Danielle, another TV salve, at least for me, is Ted Lasso from Apple TV+.
You're an American who's now in charge of a football club despite possessing very little knowledge of the game.
This was another show that just really felt right this year, and I think a lot of folks felt the same way. It was a funny show. It was a heartfelt show from the minds of Bill Lawrence and Jason Sudeikis, who, of course, stars as the character of Ted Lasso, weirdly based on an old NBC Sports promo. It's got an international feel because it does take place in the UK, so again, there could be an element of that really appeals to HFPA voters.
I think the idea of a show kind of being a salve is a great point at this time in the year when we've just had it with so many things. But I do also feel like there are some shows that are not the obvious salves that might do something here at the award season. I mean, I look at something like Rami.
They don't want a man like me anymore. They want a man like you. A man who feels a little bit like a woman, but is still officially a man.
It is this amazing representation of a Muslim American family on television that has been sorely lacking for years. But it is not as upbeat, let's say, as a Ted Lasso. But last year, the HFPA was the first to celebrate Rami himself. They then nominated him, and then they awarded him the Comedy Actor Trophy. And so it feels like maybe now in the second season, especially with someone like Mahershala Ali, who joined the series as a new supporting actor, who they also love, it feels like the show might have a little bit more of a chance to shine as a whole.
And another one that's really making a lot of noise right now, from HBO Max, it's The Flight Attendant.
We went back to his hotel. When I woke up in the morning, he was so alive.
This is probably their first big breakout hit over there at HBO Max. And part of it is thanks to the star power of Kaylee Cuoco, who's also an executive producer on this show. It's a dark mystery that also is played for dark laughs. It's something that people really got kind of addicted to as the weeks went on and the mystery sort of unfolded. A lot of people really, really fell in love with this story. And again, thanks in part to Kaylee Cuoco, who also, is in the running for a Best Actress nom.
She just has this lighter, quirkier tone to her that it really takes some of that darkness and turns it on its head. And that's something that I think is great about The Flight Attendant, but I think it's also something that I love about Dead to Me on Netflix.
What did you do? We need to call the police.
How's it gonna look if I go to the cops? Steve killed my husband. My boys can't lose me. No one can ever know what happened.
It got nominated for its first time for its second season at the Emmys in September, and now maybe could get its first award comedy series nomination at the Golden Globes. Last year, Christina Applegate was nominated in lead actress, and now the second season just went even bigger and really took the friendship at the core of the show that started out of kind of like a twisted need and made it grow into something kind of ridiculous, but also something really beautiful, even though they were basically burying a body and keeping a terrible secret the whole season. I don't know. There's so many layers to it, and it's full of grief and death and banter and these deep emotional wounds. It's just very unique comedy. And now that the show is coming back for its third and final season, but we don't really know when, given that the pandemic is still going on. It would be nice to kind of see it have, a little bit more momentum to hopefully push it into whenever that arises.
Speaking of dark comedies, maybe a little less emotionally grounded, but funny nonetheless. And also a show that sort of, I think, probably took advantage of the fact that people were watching TV a lot more at home this year because of the pandemic. It was FX's What We Do in the Shadows.
How come we never see you guys around here during the regular season?
They never seem to be around during the day. It's like they're vampires or something.
A show that surprised a lot of folks by landing a whopping number of nominations at the Emmys this year, including Best Comedy, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting. But this may be one of the shows that people caught up on because they heard from word of mouth that it's just funny. It's dark. It's hysterical. It's got a great ensemble at its base. It's based on the movie, of course, from Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi. They take it to a next level, dealing with some real fun contemporary scenarios. These vampires are at a Super Bowl party, or they're dealing with internet trolls. They're dealing with modern inconveniences, but from their own unique perspective. And it's a show that, who knows, could also get a little more attention from Globe voters this time out.
I also want to talk about Insecure from HBO.
I'm on this forward path. I'm focused. It's like no job, no man.
Issa Rae has been beloved by the HFPA. She's gotten nominated twice for Comedy Actress. The show overall has not received a Golden Globe nomination. But, last year the show received its first Emmy nomination after 4 seasons for its show. So it's not impossible that it could also get a nomination now that far into its run here. It really gave us a celebration of Black joy and just these amazing characters at a time when it really felt like the audience needed it. The 4th season aired over the summer when obviously the Black Lives Matter protests were really resurging and the movement was at the top of everyone's mind. And, it was such a dark time for so many, but then we see these characters just living their lives and having Issa and Molly, their friendship breaks up, but Issa still has all these great moments of growth with her professional life and maybe even with Lawrence, depending on how you view that relationship. And it just felt like this fresh breath of air at a time we all really needed it. So hopefully that would be something that people would give a closer look, even though it's not maybe top of mind today.
You mentioned genres and unique genres that we're seeing on television right now. And one thing we're seeing a lot, strangely, are these period pieces that use satire, but are also based in reality. We've seen it with Dickinson, we've seen it with The Good Lord Bird, and we've seen it with Hulu's The Great.
A toast to my new wife, the Empress of Russia. Huzzah!
It is...
No, you don't talk, my love.
Oh, of course.
It got a lot of acclaim this year for its real sort of satirical, comedic take on a real story of course, Catherine the Great, played by Elle Fanning, who's a contender, and, of course, Nicholas Hoult, who played Peter, is a contender as well. It's a real interesting look at that period of time. There are some real sort of biting moments. So some of the lines especially are amazing. And it also feels like something that the HFPA would be very into.
I think we should look at what our picks would be.
I'll throw a couple more out because I love Ted Lasso, and I think it is going to get a lot of attention this year because everyone's talking about it, and I wouldn't be mad at that. But 2 other shows that I want to throw out there that I'd love to be considered as well. First off, FX's Dave, a show about a rapper named Lil Dicky. What is that? But it ended up being a show that had a lot of heart. It was really about relationships. It gets really emotional at times, and a show that if you haven't watched yet, you definitely should. The other show that I'd love to throw out there is Never Have I Ever from Mindy Kaling over at Netflix. I wasn't sure what to expect of it. Turns out it's the new generation's Freaks and Geeks. It's so heartfelt. Love these characters. It was a nice surprise this year. And speaking of TV saves, if you haven't watched it, that's another one to go back and really, as you're quarantining right now, definitely something that'll make you feel a little better.
That's funny because my pick is also a teen comedy. It's Hulu's Pen 15. It's not your typical teen comedy. We have these adult actors playing teenagers, and then their ensemble around them are real life teenagers. So I'll admit that first season took me a little bit to get into that. But the second season, I thought, just took everything to new heights. I can't even count the amount of moments I actually laughed out loud, which is very rare for me. But then, on the flip side, it's not just a comedy. It does dive into some important issues. It got very emotional this year looking at, parents divorcing and mental health issues. And there's a young male character figuring out his sexuality. So its first season got some attention in the awards race, mostly for writing. But I would really love to see it celebrated now in a bigger way.
A lot of good comedy right now, Danielle.
That's true. There's a lot of good TV, which is good because we need it. Well, thank you guys for joining us and watching. This has been Awards Circuit. I'm Danielle Terciano.
And I'm Michael Schneider, and we'll see you next time.